Top of the agenda, the 1 and 3 Magpies. So all manner of theory running around and every bit of scrutiny that a big club attracts in such a scenario. And there is no avoiding the pressure that is building around the coach, Nathan Buckley.
It's patently clear that the wheels are falling off at the Magpies.
They're not good enough. They haven't got enough talent on that list. So they're at a crossroad.
That's exactly where I would have them, in no man's land.
The bigger picture is there's uncertainty everywhere.
If you don't get a response, there's a real question about if you don't get a response, but I believe in our group still, and I believe in our capacity to come back towards each other, find a feeling together, and then to do what has to be done to compete.
I just thought there was a sameness to them.
Unimaginative footy club.
To me, what was missing most, it was just spirit.
It's a tipping point now for Nathan Buckley.
So in the end, it's got to be a four-quarter performance. I mean, what the supporters want to see is what we want to see, which is the line between where you are now and where you're going, and you want it to be tracking up. We can't say that we've shown or displayed that in the first month. There's no doubt that we're capable of playing better footy, and we want to be playing better footy. We can only resurrect that with our actions. The other words are going to be cheap at the moment. Have we got that winning intent, that edge that everyone talks about? I mean, I would suggest that, no, we haven't displayed that as often as we would like to. I think that's the question that we need to answer, not just this week, but over the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks.
We've got a very stressed Collingwood Football Club and a very stressed Collingwood electorate at the moment.
They're in no man's land. That's where they're stuck.
So that's the setup around Collingwood, as Nathan Buckley identifies, a 4 to 6 week stretch, which would take us to round 10, where the judgments might be fully formed. There are such strong echoes for me of 2017 in all of this, Robbo, what I would describe as sort of accelerated analysis and reporting, a season that operated under an assumption that Buckley wouldn't make it. He did. The faith that was shown got repaid, but they find themselves a matter of years later back in the scenario. I think you could probably roll out some of our shows in the first half of 2017 and you would recognise a lot of what's been said from then to now.
Yeah, I feel this is earlier, Jared. I really do. And, I think it presented everyone, when Bucks presented after the game on the weekend, it was like, wow, we're talking every aspect of the footy team at the moment, preparation, personnel, positioning, the edge he spoke about today. My feeling is, Jared, and this is just my opinion, this is not fact, but there's a sense of familiarity I'm feeling about what's happening right now. And more often than not, that leads with the departure of the coach. I think we are seeing, again, it's only my opinion, I think we are seeing the start of the end of Nathan Buckley at Collingwood. Now, the board's got one decision to make. They either believe that Nathan Buckley should be allowed to rebuild this team. If so, you can reappoint him now if you have that faith. If you don't have that faith yet, I don't know why you haven't got that faith. If you've got it, you should just do it. The next 18 weeks of football, and if there's peaks and troughs and if there's a bit of flatlining, the commentary will be... It'll be really, really fierce. Not unlike 2017, and Eddie Maguire was there. I'll say it again, it seems to me at the moment, Nathan Buckley's on his own island. Where's any of the public support from people in positions of power at that club? The fight over who's president, park that. Come out and say something, Mark Corder and Peter Murphy. I think there might be internal struggles there on who wants to be chairman or should be chairman. But someone say something. But at the week, it's Bucks this, Bucks that. He's got to do everything. I think the club's got to come together, and I think he needs a little bit of public support at the moment.
Yes, so I think there's a risk of an undignified haste, which we have lived through before, while we wait to work out whether it is going to hold or fail. So what's the threshold? What's the threshold for success or failure this year? It'd be really interesting to know whether Collingwood had the right people in place to set those terms ahead of the season.
Well, they didn't have the football manager.
Because they knew they were going backwards.
Yeah, and they didn't have the head of football.
They all knew they were going backwards.
They didn't have the head of football until 2 months ago, Jared. So that was a long way. This has been a monumental off-season for the Pies. I don't think many people in football had the Pies in the 8. Now, the issue was then, so what's the threshold for the Pies? Is it about finishing in the finals? Yeah, he goes again. If he doesn't finish in the finals, he's gone. I can't be that. It just can't be that. That's what I'm saying. I reckon a lot of them in their heart know whether Buckley is the man to rebuild this club. I honestly believe that. What else do they have to learn about Nathan Buckley? Now, the small issue is, which could go a really big issue, and Tom Morris wrote this on Fox Footy last night. How's the relationship between Nathan Buckley and his players?
Yeah. So they have the template to answer the questions which they successfully answered at the end of 2017, and it was repaid in the aftermath, is you would have to revisit that. This is the 4 to 6 week block, Robbo, which is worth keeping in mind. They're 1 and 3. They completely botched being 2 and 2. So they were so underwhelming on Saturday night, and they don't look good enough. They look a lesser version than the team that finished 8th in the home and away season last year. But if they were to peel off the games of the teams who might be with and around them in the middle there, is 5 and 5, it was still a tremendously viable position to be at. We'll learn about them between round 6 and 9, I think, where they sit, through Anzac Day and through the test that is Sydney.
I think they'll be 3 and 7 at the end of that. I mean, the big game, it'd be tremendous if Collingwood won this week. Go on the road, circle. We've seen it do it before.
Yep.
Galvanise that spirit. Get that spirit back in the performance. We all know what it's like. We watched St Kilda do it, Jared. Just hunt. That's what they've got to do. But the next big game after that is Anzac Day. You know why? Because everyone, not just in sport, we talk about the honour of the Diggers and what they did and the courage, and we talk about those words that people can just say, no, they're just words. They're not words, Jared. They're not words. On Anzac Day weekend, those words mean a lot. Now, Essendon plays Collingwood on Anzac Day, and there is a pitiful performance from Collingwood. The discussions which are taking place this week, they will go tenfold after that week. So don't worry about the next 6 weeks. I think the next 2 weeks are just enormous for Collingwood. Their self-respect, their pride in performance, and the performance of Nathan Buckley. Because we're in a weird spot early, aren't we? We're in a very weird spot. I reckon the dialogue on Bucks really heated up about round 10, 11, 12 off the top of my head.
I went back today and did that. They lost Anzac Day, went 1 and 4, and the immediate line, the rest of the year is now working out how to exit Nathan Buckley. And then they fell to 2 and 6, and there was that fateful night against Hawthorn where they were 6 goals down heading to half-time.
Yep.
And even Buckley thought in the coach's box that he'd be walking to the car out of a job by the end of that. Collingwood rallied in the second half. So the flashpoints were round 5 and round 9.
Right, and another thing.
And they only won 9 games, they missed the 8, and it was the review that searched for the truth of direction and relationships. And in the end, unless Buckley calls his own time at some point, or the win-loss is so disastrous, they will likely face the same questions that they'll have to answer again.
Without a very significant person at that footy club.
Yeah. And
that person is Eddie Maguire. It's a whole new board table, and it's a whole new board game for Bucks. Anyway, it's 1-3. It's Collingwood West Coast this week. The result will be enormous in the discussions.
So what to do with team selection, and that mantra that's been running for a couple of weeks now has been play the kids. This was Bucks' response.
Yeah, play the kids is a common refrain at the moment. If I was sitting watching the footy with my grandpa back in the day, you'll just kick it, and that's about as play the kids is about as it makes about as much sense as that. If they're ready, they'll play.
And one of those is going to Finlay Macrae. So they've had a little look at Oliver Henry, pick 17, pick 19 comes now, they have pick 23. But the truth of where they got themselves through their fire sale was that they don't have the critical mass of kids. That's in the future. Nick Dacos and their next draft pick.
Possibly a free agent.
Yeah, and then the addition of a free agent, which was part of their strategy to free up some money. But they don't have... So Rosie, Butters and Dersma were 5, 12 and 18. McDonald, Campbell and Goulden are 4, 5 and 32. It somehow I think it's seeped into the conversation that Collingwood have their kids. They don't. They've got 17, 19 and 23. And it wasn't done in a hugely strategic way.
And again, Buckley's, you cannot not agree with him when he says, play the kids. You got to stagger the kids. You put him in for a couple of weeks, have a look at him, and might replace him with some others. You can't just put all kids. So he's going to persevere, and he's going to ask some of these out of form senior players. You know, he needs them. The team needs them because they can't bring all these kids and play them at the one time. So I absolutely think he spoke gospel today, Nathan Buckley. But that doesn't mean that they're still not in a bind. It's easy for everyone to say play the kids, but you're right. Who? What if they are not ready? He made a really good point. They drafted last year, and everyone's saying play the kids. These kids didn't play last year, so they missed all this time of football. Then they have their pre-season with Collingwood. Collingwood are rubbish at the moment. Everyone says play kids, and I've said it, but not all of them. They're not ready. They're just not ready to go and compete. He was talking about, I think, Finn McRae standing next to Patrick Dangerfield in a VFL match last week. What's Finn thinking? Oh, hello, Pat. Hello, Mr. Dangerfield. How are you going?
And play the kids is when you park the priority of winning to plan for further down the track. Well, the coach is in the last year of his contract. The idea is to stay viable for as long as possible, and viability is represented by 5 and 5.
But that's why
the quest to round 10.
Yeah, it is.
And it's throw everything at it on your way to 5 and 5.
Yeah, I accept that. I accept that. But that's why the discussion has to be had with Graham Wright, which I'm sure is happening, and the board, because they might have to pick a direction. And if that direction, everyone's got to be on board, mate. And then results become a bit irrelevant after that. So the decision on Bucks has to be made, I think, before they make the decision to go youth. A decision has to be made. And if Collingwood doesn't know now if Nathan Buckley can coach or not, really, do you reckon they need another 8 weeks to decide that? There's a foreboding feeling for me about Nathan Buckley.